since we talked about sustainability, the next session also that we have is on the Indian hemp industry, paving the way to achieve, SDG goals. And I'd like to invite Eben to sort of, host this session.
Thank you, Vanya. Good evening, everyone. Much happy to listen from Rajiv about sustainability and taking it forward. We in last 15 years, we were working, creating an sustainability through United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And here we have Indian hemp industry, which is transforming the way of sustainability in totally like. So today I wanted to have all these panelists here talking about the morality-driven cannabis policies and how the Indian hemp industry can be the leader to pave sustainability for the entire ecosystem. So I would like to give a quick intro to the panel. So everyone here in our panel is working on hemp for a long time. And I would like to have Jahan, who is the Bombay Hemp Company. Over to you, Jahan, please.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Eben. Thank you so much, Vanya, and the entire team for arranging, I would say, a very insightful set of discussions, discovery and dialogue across different domains. And happy to cap off the day with, of course, hemp and cannabis, which is always an interesting topic that invites a lot of attention, and its attachment to our sustainable development goals, both for the nation and for the rest of the world as well. Just a brief matter of introduction from my side. My name is Jahan Peston Jamas. I'm one of the co-founders and directors of Bombay Hemp Company, that is India's first and oldest industrial and medical hemp cannabis company. Began all the way back in 2013, have worked across the entire value chain of textile-based industries, of cosmetics, of food-based products, as well as of Ayurvedic-based proprietary medicines, including working with stakeholders in policy, government, science, academia, the medical community, farmers, artisans, and of course my fellow compatriots from the industry as well. Now, that's sort of enough about me. I think the real stars of the show, of course, are our panelists for the day. I believe we have Tarun Jami from Green Jams Infrastructure joining us. We have Haneesh Katnawer from Himalayan Hemp, Animesh Thakur from OGhemp, Abhishek Mohan from HempStreet, and Camila Pimentel from the Headstart team as well on this. So welcome, panelists. I myself will be moderating this panel, and perhaps what we can do is we can go around sort of this virtual table, starting with Tarun, where you could give a bit of an introduction about yourself, your organization, what you do, and how you're aiming and the type of efforts you're trying to make, and what type of progress you've achieved through these years in the Indian hemp industry. So over to you, Tarun. I'll hand it over, and then we can take it one at a time from here.
Hey, John, thank you so much for the introduction. Great to meet everyone, guys, again. I'm Tarun Jami. I'm the founder of Green Jams. We basically are India's first hemp-free company. We basically make carbon negative building materials, and hempseed is one of the products that we pioneered for India. Also happy to report that we essentially make the world's strongest hempseed. And we also basically, make other kinds of carbon negative building materials like agrofeed, which is made using paddy straw and so on. And yeah, that's about it.
Thanks so much for that, Tarun. Perhaps we can hand over to Haneesh quickly to take us through the great work he's doing and how he's engaging with different stakeholders, communities. So over to you, Haneesh.
Hello everyone, my name is Haneesh Katnawer and I'm from Himachal Pradesh, and we have this organization called Himalayan Hemp, which is focusing on preserving the indigenous variety of cannabis and hemp in the Himalayan range. And so far, since the cultivation is not possible, so we are taking some other initiatives in a way. Like we made our first product as sanitary pad, which actually we got it validated, and it is under grant as well. We have 3 grants on this product so far. The recent one being the BIRAC grant of 50 lakh rupees. And so I think it will be sorted in the longer run. And then recently we also started making huts in a way because we live in an area which is a tourist based area and a lot of artists are here. So one of them was here, and in collaboration we were able to make a hut as well, which is like, so now the supply chain is sorted, like in a way the fiber is getting used into making the sanitary pads while the herds can be used in making these kinds of some small huts. So this is how it is. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Haneesh. And we'll definitely get back to you and Tarun later with a couple of questions about the work you're doing and how that aligns with the sustainable development mission of hemp. I think we'll quickly move on to Animesh Thakur, Animesh from OGhemp. I'll hand it over to you for a brief introduction about the great work you guys are doing, and then we can move on to the rest of the panelists.
Thank you, Jahan, and hello, everyone. Welcome to the board. Companies ranging from envelopes, business cards, letterheads, then going towards packaging, making bags, boxes, tags, stickers, labels. And then we also provide papers for the people who want to innovate, for the printers, and trying to have a distribution market. Our main purpose is to take hemp fiber and make it to a level that we can disrupt the wood pulp industry, because we know it is one of the polluting. Also, hemp has a lot of qualities on the cellulose side, also the production cycle of it. And I think trees are the one which gives us oxygen, right? And nothing else does other than that. So that's the whole purpose, to create products out of hemp fibers, be it molded products or paper products. So that's where we are heading towards right now. Amazing traction. People love the products, but we are still finding it difficult to get into the distribution network of it. But yeah, lots of things coming on the way. Yeah. So that's it from my side. I think we can head over to the next person.
Now, thank you so much for that, Animesh, and greatly looking forward to learning more about the challenges and how you face them through your entrepreneurial course. I'll hand over now quickly to our second last panelist, that is Abhishek Mohan. Abhishek is representing HempStreet and doing some fantastic work. Abhishek, the stage is all yours. Please feel free.
Yeah, hi everybody. Yeah, I'm from HempStreet. We're in this first research to retail medical cannabis player. We've set out. We've just come off fresh off possibly the world's biggest rollout in dispensing clinics, and we've recently won the BIRAC grant for a world first transdermal technology that is also when we're able to disclose more, will play a major role in sustainability in terms of material that it uses for cannabinoids. And yeah, we basically see ourselves as a solutions company. We go after underserved sections of society. For example, women. Our first product was aimed at menstrual cramps, and now I'm glad the rest of the industry is also looking into that sector. So we will always be about India for the world, and to serve underserved sections of society. I think that's where I would say a lot more bang, less flash, I would say. So thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Abhishek, and you and the team are doing a stellar job, absolutely fantastic job, and greatly looking forward to learning more during the session. And I'll quickly hand over to our final panelist, Camila Pimentel. Apologies, Camila, I mistakenly introduced her from the Headstart team when she is, of course, a key part of the Sativa media team. So over to you briefly, Camila, for a brief round of introduction from your side.
No worries. Hello, I work with Sativa Media, and we aim to create a community that creates awareness around hemp and the hemp industry. We believe that as a media company, we are able to impact people and to amplify the voices of you, the entrepreneurs, the companies, so that people make better choices, whether it's lifestyle, health, fashion, or even government, investors, education, so that we can create a community and a platform that helps this industry grow. Since it's in India, it's still a very young industry. So we believe that spreading the word is a big part of making this industry a bigger industry. And since we're talking about the SDG goals, the last goal is about making partnerships to achieve goals, which we believe is not only something that we need in our professional lives, personal lives to achieve our professional and personal goals, but also making partnerships to achieve the hemp's industrial goals as well.
Thank you so much for that, Camila, and greatly looking forward to learning more in the course of the session of the role you envision that media will play for the course of how hemp and SDGs will align. And at least from my side, on a personal note, I guess I'm very excited about this panel discussion. It traces a lot of back to a couple of years ago when our first work with Niti Aayog, one of India's premier quasi-government think tanks, began, working closely with the vice chairman of Niti Aayog, Dr. Rajiv Kumar, and his team, where we worked together to map out how hemp or cannabis could have a direct or indirect impact on several SDGs. And the positive, of course, was about 11 to 12 out of the entire gamut of SDGs had great potential to be enhanced, to be optimized, and to be able to benefit the larger Indian population. So I think this discussion is a very poignant, very succinct one, and pretty much apt for the context of the world we live in. And without any further delay, I think what I'll do is I'll hop into a couple of questions we have from ourselves. Post that in about 30 minutes from now. As we wrap up questions from the panel, we'll open it up for Q&A from the audience as well. So to start off with our first question, and I'd like to direct this at a couple. Perhaps we can begin with Haneesh and then get Animesh and Tarun's thoughts on this. Is that we'd love to learn and understand a bit more about how your organization has been working towards fulfilling the UN SDGs, whether directly, indirectly, and what impact it's had. And of course, if you could share some experiences or anecdotes about the same with us and the audience, who I'm sure are very keen to learn more. So perhaps over to you, Haneesh, and maybe after that, Animesh and Tarun, if you have some thoughts and points, we'd love to hear from you.
Sure. Thank you, Jahan. I would start that by saying that I came to know about the UN SDGs through LinkedIn, first of all. My research is, that bad. But the thing is, as soon as I came to know about it, first thing I did was I compared it with the vision of the organization, that we have. And I will switch off the video because I think there is some internet problem. So when we compared it, so apparently many of them were also eventually, we were able to categorize them into some things. And more or less, we came across that, okay, we are working mainly on the UN SDG 1, 2, 3, and 6. That time, that is what I assessed. And in that also, if we look at them, now 1, 2, 3, and 6 are basically no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, and clean water and sanitation. And in that also, the core domain went down into 6. Basically, in that also, if you go into 6.2 and 6.3, it is about achieving access to adequate and equitable sanitation and hygiene for all the people, especially women and girls. And 6.3 being improve water quality by reducing pollution. So that gave us an more consolidated approach about, okay, we are going in the right direction, and this is also in line with the UN SDGs. And now, apart from that, since we work in a cooperative model, which is more like rather than in a completely corporate scenario, it's more like a social enterprise where we go in the local area and we try to create cooperative societies of women who might stitch the masks or the sanitary pads or other products coming to it, so that slowly we can work towards no poverty and no hunger as well by connecting it with the social impact. And recently being this hut which has started, so it has got some other UN SDGs into account as well. But I feel that I'll keep it restricted till this point, and we can go on with the next question maybe later on. So over to you, Jahan, again.
Thanks for that, Haneesh, and really looking forward to learning more. Yes, can hear you, and I think we can hand over to Animesh perhaps first, and then Tarun second. And thanks so much for that, Haneesh. Looking forward to learning more in the follow-up questions as
well. Thanks, Haneesh. Good insights. Okay, so what we are doing with Sustainable Development Goals currently is like to change the production, the way paper is being produced. So if you take a pulp of maybe wood pulp or any pulp, maybe plant-based jute or bagasse, like we call sugarcane. So what you have to do is like you have to process the pulp, and then for making it whiter, you have to bleach it, maybe with chlorine or sulfur and those kind of things. It also happens with the clothing industry, because they also need bleached products, and then when you are making yarns out of it. But what we do in that part is that how you can achieve that without using chlorine and sulfur, and you get a part of it without damaging the fiber strength. That was the most challenging part, because this fiber is amazingly strong, and when you make papers out of it, it's very rough. The surface is very rough, it's not printable. Then you have to again go back, and then but you don't want to use chemicals, that's in your agenda, and then still you have to do something. So on that part we use lesser chemicals and try to get products in that part. So in what happens with the plant-based products, especially sugarcane and jute, there is a black liquor which comes out when you are processing it. And in 2013, I think Supreme Court ordered that you can't do that black liquor thing. And if you are doing, then you have to reuse that black liquor in your whole system. And if you don't use it, you can't drop it in water, because before that they were putting it in the rivers. And then they said that either you create a sustainable environment in your own, or close down your factory. That was the one thing which came out of. And that's why I think especially the cities like Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, which are more rich on rice, on wheat, they can't use that, in either making papers, or at least making pulp, or making sacks out of it. And those things close down. So that was our challenge. But hemp, they have lignin in it. Lignin percentage is very low. And then when you process it, the black liquor percentage is only 6% out of it. And that created a good impact on it. So that is one thing. Second is the innovation in the production. So now you want to do packaging. You want to make packaging for everyone, be it a small product manufacturer or automotive industry, for everyone. So that is one part where you can use the tensile strength of the papers. Suppose you have a container of 40 tons, which goes through shipping, and they have a limited amount of storage that they can do there. So what we did is like we replaced the pallets, which is made out of wood, and we replaced it with the fibers of made out of hemp fibers, and we made boards out of it, like AAA or AA boards, and that reduced like 120 kgs of the weight in a container. So that was an amazing part that we suggested them. Okay, it is expensive to you, I know, like buying a wood pallet, that industry is already there, and we are just coming into it, but what I am giving you is a benefit on that you can bring more weight on that container. So that was one part which we did in the innovation. We are still trying to get into it. The other thing is how you can use the fibers in the molded products, like paper plates and all those things. So we were talking to one of the part of Niti Aayog is Ninja. They asked us to create paper plates for temples, for all the 4 dhams that they have. They eat papers and they throw it, right? So we were trying to make that how we can reduce the consumption of it. So what we proposed to them that, okay, the paper plates are 7 times expensive than what they are using right now. But what we said, like if you give us back that paper, then we give you carbon credits, or we give you money on it, because we are getting the raw materials back, and then again we process it and go it further. So it's still in the loop. We are working with that because we have to create a consumption and production cycle, like how you can retrieve it back and then again put it in that. So I think these are where we are trying to achieve the mark, and yeah, exploring other horizons also of the UN development goals. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for that, Animesh, and very insightful knowledge. Many, many different things, very diverse knowledge, and it really speaks to the diversity of this panel. And I think, it'll be a great time to segue to Tarun as well, to get, of course, Tarun's insight and his know-how and background experience with Green Jams and the great work he's been doing. Thanks for that, Animesh and Haneesh, and over to you, Tarun.
Thank you, Jahan. We've known each other for the past, and I don't know, man, 2014, right? It's been quite some time. Yeah, but since the last time, since the time that we first met, you've seen our journey. We've traveled quite a fair distance, and today we've reached a point where we achieve 9 out of the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals directly and indirectly. We've all spoken a lot about how we're doing it, but I just wanted to move a little bit beyond Sustainable Development Goals, because I think we've reached a point where the SDGs matter, but there is something else that also matters more, and then I think we also need to start thinking about models such as circularity, linearity, and so on, and how they basically have their own place in this world, and how one is not better than the other if you use the tools properly. So for us, specifically in terms of innovation, it has always been about intelligent design. For us, we've always been looking at the whole life cycle analysis, the whole life cycle impact of the product. In fact, I'm actually pretty proud to say that we are very linear in the sort of work that we do, because what we're essentially doing is carbon capture. And if we were to actually bring it back into circularity, that would essentially mean that we would never be carbon negative, but we would actually come back to being carbon neutral. And that is not as sexy as being carbon negative. So for us to essentially have and do what we do, it is very important for us to be linear. We need to make, and then we need to store. So those are some of the things that we're doing. As I mentioned, 9 of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Some of the things that we focus on are climate action, safe and basically sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption, production, decent work, and economic growth, and so on. And these are some of the things that we look at directly, and indirectly, we obviously focus on no poverty, reduce inequalities, because of the sort of workforce that we employ, the sort of stakeholders that we engage. We're essentially solving much larger problems other than just simple, making carbon neutral buildings. But we also essentially help support these marginalized communities. We have the farmers, we have the tribal folk who essentially give us the raw material that we need. We also, most of our workforce that we employ here in Roorkee are essentially Dalits. It's a long list. When companies like us, when people like us essentially put our minds together and then put our will together, is when I think it's super easy for us to drive growth and progress, and essentially build a world that is equal to good for all. Thanks, man.
No, thank you so much for that, Tarun. And as you mentioned, right from the early days, it's been great to see your journey, and Godspeed to you and the team. You're doing fantastic work. Right, the same with Haneesh and the team from Himalayan Hemp, as well as Animesh, Shailesh, and the OGhemp team as well. So really hats off to you guys, and looking forward to learning more with a couple more questions we have in store for you guys as well. So I think what we'll do is now we'll move on to our second batch of questions. And I'd love to start with Abhishek particularly, and then perhaps we can get Animesh as well as Haneesh's thoughts on these as well. I guess the question specifically, starting with you, Abhishek, is to understand a bit more about what role do you anticipate that other stakeholders, whether government, academia, researchers, farming groups, artisans, not-for-profits, local industry, etc., would hold towards advancing your organization's sustainable development mission as well as its vision. So I'd love to hear and get your insights on that, and then we can hand over to the rest of the time post that.
Unmute. Yeah, okay. So like I've always maintained, when you start off with a problem that you want to solve, right? And you look at something like a mass ailment, you look at women's health, menstrual cramps, chronic pain, things that affect people on a mass scale. Really, it becomes very easy to see what roles you have as you build an industry of that, because your degree of measurement is not how many grams you've sold, or like how the globe, the Western idea of cannabis is, but it is how many people's lives you've changed, right? And when those people belong to a strata of society that are either underserved or completely, I mean, this is like when I talk about fintech in, a couple of friends of mine are doing very well in fintech in Africa. It's fin in some countries, right? Because the tech only comes when you have the fin. They've had nothing before. So when you look at, what we, who we work with, yeah, of course, I mean, the farming community, the doctors that we work with, who actually are the, lifeblood of what we're trying to do, the scientific community that helps innovate, the healthcare ministries, the local governments, I think everybody has to come together, because we're going from 0 to 1 in a lot of these cases. And that cannot be done by a company such as us, or even all of us put together. We can try, but what it takes to alleviate a mass ailment is, I mean, we've seen Bill Gates try, right? So we need, essentially, we look at everybody that's involved in the upliftment of those people, whether it's poverty, whether it's health. So in our case, I mean, the obvious SDGs we would say would be health and well-being, and I would say, reduction of inequality, gender equality, because one of the things we went after was to solve a problem that people weren't really looking at. I mean, dysmenorrhea, endometriosis, menstrual cramps is a mass ailment. Like 158 million women experience it. It takes 9 to 10 days off their working year, but still, there's like totally half-ass solutions right now. So I think that, yeah, sorry, to answer that question, the mere strata of society that we're looking to change lives of requires us to really expect the contribution of literally everybody up the value chain, from the person, farmer, from everybody up and down.
No, completely agree with you on that, Abhishek. And we've seen a sort of similar flywheels needing to be developed with all different stakeholders, and the importance of the collective ecosystem. And hats off to you for pointing that out and really highlighting that. I think what I'll do briefly is I'll pass on to one of the other panelists. Perhaps we can start with you, Haneesh, and then we can hand over to Animesh for their thoughts on the question as well.
Yeah, so in these lines, actually, this is now an upgrade of the question, because the government and the important stakeholders get involved here. So in that manner, first of all, I would like to highlight the SDG 2, which is the zero hunger. In this, if you see 2.4, which is about maintaining the biodiversity of the seeds. So eventually, this is what is really important, because this is again, since I come from Himachal, and luckily I also come from a farmer family. So what I have learned from my father is that you only trust the seeds that I tell you about, or when somebody tells you from the outside, so you have to trust it very less, because they have the example in terms of the Congressy booty, which you might have heard. It's I forgot its scientific name. I'm sorry. So Congressy booty was brought in 1960 because when there was a famine in India, and that time a lot of wheat plants were also mixed in the seeds, and that is what you find in most of the North India. And I have actually thought about it in this way also, like that plant can actually fight with our wheat plant, because both I've seen them growing together as well, and wherever cannabis is there, it grows less. So just adding this on, but the thing is, this 2.4 is something where government can come forward, and it can actually make such things which make policies for preserving the indigenous variety as well. And apart from that, there are 3 goals that I want to mention. One is this goal 13, which is basically about climate change, which is related to climate change. And in that, if you see, every target is something which we need today. And if the policies, like especially the target 13.2, which says integration of climate change measures into national policy strategies and planning, if that doesn't happen till the time, we won't be able to have a very proper kind of a change. Because when we made this reusable sanitary pad also, when we did a market research in a metropolitan city, most of the women were ready to take it as a use and throw product, which is again a failure from our side, because the actual, we made a reusable product for a purpose. So that way. And second is the goal 12, which is about sustainable consumption and production patterns. Since most of us are not really aware in terms of what kind of a sustainable consumption we can do, so there should be a framework coming from the government, which again highlights target 2.1, which is implementing a 10-year framework on these programs, so that whosoever is working on it can also have some time to work on it, and not like, a government changes and everything changes. And the goal 14 is the life below water, which is eventually again coming back to the sanitary pad, like whenever it is disposed of, we are affecting the life below water as well. And these are some of the things that government should look into and frame policies around it. So that's it from my side. Thank you.
Very apt, very apt. Thank you so much for that, Haneesh. I think, there's a lot of insight there that may be hidden insight for many people, that you've just kind of opened their eyes and really got them to see the value that a stakeholder like the government, state, center, otherwise through agencies will have to play in being able to, assist and collaborate and scale as well. So no, thank you so much for that, Haneesh. I think I'll move on to Animesh, and I would love to get your thoughts on this particular question, and love to learn more on what role you see for other stakeholders towards driving OGhemp's sustainable development mission and vision as well.
Thanks, Abhishek and Haneesh. Nice. So I think we have to create an ecosystem, and India is a very diverse country with languages and all, but with land. Every land changes, the atmosphere changes, the climate changes. Now, if you go to Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh, you find more feminine cannabis seeds around. Now, you come to my state, Bihar. I have seen cannabis everywhere. You go in the jungle and you find a male cannabis plant. I think it should start from research. India is still lacking in the research part of it, and no one is willing to take a step in that. In government, you have to find the right ear. Finding a right ear is the most difficult part. And this plant comes between agriculture and excise, and you don't know where to go. And sorry to say, but the state, the condition of the state, when we talk about politicians, they generally don't understand what we are talking about, because they don't have that intellectuality or to understand the thing. So I think the principal secretaries to I know it's very bad to say that, but that's the truth of our country, because we are still lacking in the integral part, and we don't want to take the knowledge from the ground. So someone has to go on the ground and dig the research, because research done on Uttarakhand or Himachal will be very different from research done in Bihar, because the plant changes, and if we are getting into the same lobby of 0.3% THC, then the whole game of indigenous plant, or India being a country which full of cannabis seeds, will be lost somewhere, and we will be dependent on the GMO seeds provided by the people. I think using a plant is people's nature. Like, you can use a plant to heal yourself, or to make something out of it. I think it should start from research, and if we get a good research on that part, so be it if we are in paper industries, then CPPRI and the people with CSIR, because you are also I think BOHECO is also tagging up with CSIR to coming up with GMO seeds. Abhishek is also working with them in that part. But I think that will differ from region to region. The cultivation capacity will also differ. I think making an acre in Bihar and Maharashtra or Himachal will differ significantly. I know that. And we don't have a data to provide to it, because once you go to the government, they ask for you to, okay, how much can you produce? How much a farmer can earn? So you don't have that data. So you have to go back, you have to do the research, you have to do a pilot project, then come up, give government a part of it. And then what we can do, we can take NGOs to that. And the thing is, if we want to make it still carbon negative, then you have to reduce the transportation. You have to reduce all the things where petrol or diesel is being used. Then only you can be a carbon negative. We can say, okay, we are a carbon negative product, but if you take your whole supply chain, I don't think any carbon is left, because the whole system is using so much of carbon on that part. So I think it has to go from the research, then government, and if with the help of NGOs, we can train farmers to make pulp, to make a little bit process in the field, and then give the structure, then I think it will be very best. And I have seen this with jute. Bihar, they are one of the massive producer of jute, and almost the first level of the bast fibers coming out of it is almost the same, and this is the time of cultivation. I went to my place, and there was loads of truck going with jute, and I was just blown away by saying, okay, you just have to replace this with hemp, and the system is already being developed, but we don't have a solid data to back it up. So I think it has to start from research and then going towards the farmer, and then you get a product, and we have it more controlled way. Yeah.
Well said. I think you've highlighted some very important points here, Animesh, particularly around the need for core research, the need for strategic awareness and building the narrative amongst political, bureaucratic stakeholders, build driving the interest from what's actually happening on the ground. And of course, the technical input to the FPOs, artisan groups to help them in terms of skill development and taking it upwards as well. So very well said. Just a small correction. The our CSI project isn't making GMO seeds, they're all natural. So, but as you said, the goal is multi-location trials, क्योंकि जो उत्तर प्रदेश में उगता है वो बिहार में कभी-कभी नहीं उगता है, वो महाराष्ट्र में शायद नहीं उगेगा. The importance of having heterogeneity is very, very important, and I think that's a very critical point you highlighted. So, thank you so much for that, Animesh. It's great to hear these insights.
Yeah.
I think what we'll do is we'll move on to our next question. This I'm opening up for all panelists and would love to hear everyone's views. The question, and perhaps we can start with Tarun on this one. Which SDGs, particularly Tarun, are you most excited about that Green Jams, your organization or the Indian hemp industry at large, would be in a position to fulfill by 2030? Because let's face it, we're 9 years away, and we're right on the path. The industry's early days. There's so many fantastic players just like yourselves. So, which SDGs get you most excited that you feel are in our realm of reality that we could achieve as an industry, or as, of course, Green Jams' vision and mission? Would love to hear your thoughts, and then maybe we can move over to Haneesh and then Animesh.
And I mean, I've always been known to be a straight shooter, so I'll just get to the point. I mean, for the industry to actually affect any good change, I think it needs to get it back together. I'm sorry to be, bringing in such a negative perspective, but then at least in terms of potential, what the industry has is enormous, right? I mean, I'm particularly excited about climate action, goal number 13, and for us, that's the primary goal, and that's why we focus so much on it. But once everything is started, once the regulations and everything are in place, and then once we have once we've overcome all the concerns that there are, I see huge potential. I mean, we're literally talking about creating systems that could very well reverse climate change. So I mean, it goes well beyond what the goals of climate action are as a single sustainable development goal. For us, however, I mean, with Green Jams, though, I mean, through HempStreet and AgriFeed, we're pretty bullish on the sort of impact that we have, specifically with AgriFeed, because we don't actually have to go through all of that BS on figuring out where our raw materials are going to come from, how we're actually going to gain access to that kind of volumes of raw materials to actually affect any kind of real change, especially when you talk about the problem, which is enormous. About 45% of global carbon emissions come basically only from buildings, and it's huge. And just rectifying this one particular industry, just the construction is going to literally put us on a completely different path. And achieving our climate goals would essentially become a lot more easy. And I mean, so then the second most UNSDG that I'm more excited about is the sustainable cities and the communities. And I think it's these two products, specifically at Green Jams, that we are super bullish about and that we target, very, very aggressively.
Thank you so much for that, Tarun. Thank you so much for helping us understand what really stood out to you with the team at Green Jams, and I definitely agree with you that in particular these two SDGs will be a very strong foundation for the future of complete sustainability, or as close to it as we can get as well. So thanks so much for that, Tarun. I think what we do is we'll hand over to Haneesh, post which we can get to Animesh then Abhishek, and then we can round off with Camila's thoughts as well. So over to you, Haneesh, and then we can pass on to Animesh.
For this question, I'll say there are three. We all apply to most of the goals. Like I think all the panelists here. But first of all, the 10th goal 10, which is about the reduction in the inequality within and among the countries. So basically, when we started with the hemp and cannabis, like we anyway understand this, that most of the people coming in hemp industry are either the users or the people who are seeing the benefit in the industry, and they are non-users and they are coming in the industry. So we are those users who are we are the users who got into the industry by the way of using it first, with the lack of knowledge about its medicinal properties or whatever it was, more or like abusing it, I'll say. And then that's how. So the plant meant something else altogether. So even when this is actually a very bad thing to say, but the thing is, when UN came up with this removing cannabis from Schedule 4 to Schedule 1, and THC is still kept inside, so it's more like still. So it shows that plant is not free now. Plant has already got a hold of the medical system and pharmaceutical system, and also the financial system. So we have to play along with it. So now how do we reduce the inequalities then based upon it? So basically we understand what are the things which are in India, like what are the social inequalities, what are the economic inequalities, and that can actually help. In terms of innovation is there, research is there, which is also coming from the West. We are also doing it here, but it is better to understand the social spectrum as well, because this is what also affects the politicians, and this is also what affects the policies on a longer run. Second is I'll talk about the 16, which is about promoting peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, providing access to justice for all, and building effective, accountable and inclusive institutions at all levels. So this is a very important goal, and I'll say this is like the elephant in the room, because this goal mentions all the bad things which are there in the world. And this is even difficult for a lot of people to get into, like reducing the crime. As an example, I'll give you we got a request from an NGO to deliver 3,000 pads to imprisoned women. So that's how we started getting into it, and also try to understand that if we give it to them for stitching, so what happens is they are also learning a skill while being in jail. So taking these kinds of initiatives, and that uniquely can also go in line with the goals. And the last goal that I want to talk about, and which is also important, is the strengthening the means of implementation and revitalization of the global partnership, which is the goal number 17, as mentioned by Camila before. Since we all are new, it becomes very important to partner. We also tried one or two times we tried it. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But the thing is, this is what we need at the moment. And I won't say let's 6 of us collaborate now, because we all have different visions in a way. But like this kind of an approach we all need to have, so that bigger goal stays on the industry as well. So this is what I wanted to say. Thank you.
No, extremely insightful. Insightful. Thank you so much for that, Haneesh. And I think the power of innovation, collaborative innovation, as you suggested, will be the key to helping us attain those goals and getting as close as possible over the next decade as well. So thanks so much for that, Haneesh. I'll move on to Animesh, post which we would love to get Abhishek as well as Camila's thoughts. So over to you, Animesh, for your thoughts on the same.
Yeah. Thank you, Jahan. I think we, in the sustainability development goals, we have 3 things to highlight, like the 3 main goals that we are trying to target, with other things to be get affected of it. So industry innovation. So where we are procuring our raw materials in more sustainable way, will then innovation, like how you can create more. I'll give you examples. So there is a GSM, like GSM is like the thickness of paper. Okay. So if I give you a paper of 300 GSM of a wood pulp and of a hemp paper, the density is lower than the wood pulp. That means the area it is taking, the weight it is taking is lesser, and it gives more strength. Like a 300 GSM paper is compared to a 600, 400 or 450, 500 GSM paper as a wood pulp. So that is a massive difference that we are trying to put in. So there has to be an innovation in this part, like how you can create and provide it in a way that people can reduce their cost on shipment or in packaging, and creating an infrastructure in this. So we are still in the way of making papers in rolls. We are making it in sheets, but we are going towards rolls so that it has a good market. And the raw materials they're trying to do is to create a specific products which goes towards a culture of it. So it fits into the machine well and is the same chain which is going to with the hemp papers. What is right now being used and production. So the thing I was telling you, that we were talking to Ninja, and they were saying that, can you create plates? And then we were like, okay, if you are creating plates, then it will be very expensive for them. So how can you do something that you get your raw materials back? That is a very good challenge for us, that how we can make it circular, so that so we waste the product, we get it back, either we give carbon credits or we waive off the money on top of it. So that is one part. And then the production, so if we have a good consumption of it, then we can reuse the papers more times to do the production. As hemp can be used more than 8 times, we have already recycled our paper, and we got an amazing strength till sixth time, and it can go till 11th. Okay, so that is a massive part. Climate change, using hemp can create so much peace in the nature, because the whole cycle of a paper production, or how a wood pulp gives paper, and the whole tree has a 20 years or a 50-year cycle, especially the timber trees. If we can create hemp, especially in India, in the lower regions where sun is more, I think we can get two times or 3 times easily a cultivation in one process, and that can create and help the depletion of forest in a lower rate. I think that can give us a good amount of back in that part, and it will help the climate change. So these are the 3 parts that we are trying to cover up right now.
Thank you so much for that, Animesh. And I think, really stellar points you've highlighted. I'd love to quickly hand over to Abhishek to learn more about what gets HempStreet as the organization, as well as for the larger hemp industry, what gets you most excited from the SDGs, particularly from a 2030 point of view, and vice versa. So over to you, Abhishek.
So I think the obvious 2 we look at really as an organization would be good health and well-being and reduce inequalities. I would say just the potential of an industry that is truly indigenous. I'm just talking about what we're doing at HempStreet. So like the fact that the plant is indigenous, the healthcare situation is indigenous, the form of medicine is indigenous. So it's actually one way, for example, it's a chance for something that's agricultural related that should not become big agriculture, right? I mean, 83% of our farmers have less than 3 hectares or 2 hectares, I would say. And it's very hard for them to subsist based on that. So I think the opportunity we see is this kind of fully indigenous movement to solve an indigenous problem, which could tremendously change the quality of life of people at the bottom of the pyramid. So I think that we're most excited about that as a company. But hemp, again, I mean, it's a no-brainer. There's so much that, I mean, the good part is that there's so much movement around it globally, right? So you're now very aware of what, on an industrial scale, what can happen with hemp, what it can replace, what it can reduce. I mean, all that. I'm obviously not a super expert at the industrial side of things, but we know that hemp could change in a massive way how we live without compromising on our quality of life. Like, for example, I've stopped eating meat 2 years ago because I just thought it was not a fair thing to do. Like the industrialized killing of animals is just not something I agree with anymore. So, but it was a sacrifice. It was a huge sacrifice. I mean, I love meat. It was a huge sacrifice to not do it. But now with hemp, a lot of the applications of hemp, you don't feel the difference in the building that you're building. You don't feel the difference in the clothes that you're wearing. It's not really, the fact that you could change so much in the world without changing your quality of life is amazing, or actually technically even inconveniencing yourself. So I'm super excited for hemp primarily because of that. It's a way for us to change without pain, I would say.
Very poignantly put, Abhishek. Thank you so much for that from the macro as well as from the micro lens. I think that was extremely fulfilling, and I'm sure a lot of the audience will be very happy and excited as things go forward with the hemp as well as the medical cannabis side of things and the sustainable delivery of it as well. I think just to round off this question, I'd love to hand this over to Camila. And Camila, if you don't mind, I'd love to attach another question to that for you, along with what SDGs get you most excited for the Indian hemp industry up till about 2030 or so. Would love to learn more about how you and the team at Sativa Media envision the role of the media industry in India and of course globally, and what synergies that has with the Indian hemp and cannabis industry in achieving these the mission of several UN SDGs by 2030. So over to you, Camila. Would love to hear your thoughts.
Thank you. So knowing that hemp can fulfill and achieve 15 out of the 17 SDG goals, I want to see the hemp industry fulfill them all. But there is one that Haneesh and Animesh talked about that I think it's an opportunity for the hemp industry to set an example, and that is goal 12, which is responsible consumption and production. So this goal focuses on managing waste, on the efficient use of natural resources, of how we can recycle and reuse materials in our processes, on how we can reduce waste, on how we can make each part of the process a sustainable process from the seed to the end product. And I think this is a huge opportunity for the hemp industry, because we know that there are a lot of other eco-friendly materials or eco-friendly industries that as a raw material, they are eco-friendly, but through the process, they lose that. The end product, let's talk about packaging. So it's an eco-friendly product, but it has plastic in their packaging, or it's an eco-friendly product, but they use, let's say, not natural dyes that have a lot of chemicals, or they use a lot of water in their dyeing process. So I think this is a huge opportunity for the hemp industry to really set an example for other industries, and to show how every step of the way can be done in a conscious manner, can impact lives, can impact the environment. And in there, we can also see the other sustainable goals being achieved just by looking at the processes, just by looking at how sustainable we are in every single step of the way. So that for me is something that I'm really excited about, because you hear now these words like eco-friendly are so, they are used so lightly. And in the end, the brand as a whole is not an eco-friendly brand. The brand as a whole is not sustainable. The brand as a whole is not pushing for equality or any of those things. So that's why I think this goal would be really exciting to see, and really exciting for this industry to tackle it and to work towards achieving this goal, along with, of course, the rest of them. And moving on to the other question about media and what is the role that media plays in helping achieve these goals. I would like to start just by talking about a little bit about the past. So the SDG goals will build upon the millennial goals, and millennial goals were set in the 2000s, and they were just 8 goals. And I don't know about you, but back then in 2000s, I had no idea that these goals existed. We didn't speak a lot about eco-friendly things, maybe recycle, reuse, maybe a little bit. But I believe that we just expected the government to take over these big issues. Everything was left to the government to make the policies, for the government to do things to work out these problems. And maybe then some NGOs got involved, some nonprofits, right? But while the globalization was happening and media was changing, people were getting more information. And by their own experience, let's say someone that has lived in the same place for 5 to 10 years, they all know that climate change is real. No one can say that it's not real, because we've seen it, we've lived it. If you lived in the same city, you've seen how weather has changed. Something as simple as weather, as the weather has changed. So as we got more information, then more people wanted to get involved in tackling these big issues. So now we have a lot of startups that are focusing on these goals, whether they know it or not. They want to tackle these issues because they feel that now it's not let just the government take over this and let them find a solution. It's something that they say, we want to get involved. We have to do something. This is real. You know, natural resources, species, like things that we can see. So we are now wanting to be part of that change. And so all this happened also through information and through media, because people got more, people were able to get to this information, right? And that was the job of media. And now that we have this millions, not millions, but a lot of ways to communicate, so we have more ways to help people make better decisions. So now we have the companies, the startups, you guys making the products. And we need to bridge that gap between the people that are making the solutions, providing with the options, and the people that can use, consume, and buy. And here is the bridge that media can connect one with the other. Through awareness, through education, we can provide people with the information they need to make better choices, to know what options they have. Just like Abhishek was saying, maybe 15 years ago, it was really difficult to find an eco-friendly option. It was very expensive. So people would just choose the same old type of clothing, or included medicine. It was very expensive to go to like an alternative doctor or buy medicine, depending on where you live. But now those things have changed. So media is the way that we can amplify these messages from all these companies, these solutions, these options. We can amplify this message, get to the people so that people can also make different choices, more eco-friendly, more sustainable choices. And with that, other areas also get an impact. So if people are using more, if people are demanding more, then there is a market, then there are investors, then the government wants to chip in as well, and they want to profit from what's going on. So media plays a huge part in making the industry grow, and also in helping people understand that they can also make an impact. They can also contribute to these goals being met by the choices they make. They don't need to start a company, or they don't need to have a lot of money to invest for to do something to help climate change. They can just buy something that has a carbon footprint that is smaller than, I don't know, whatever they bought before. Or they can think about building a house with a negative carbon footprint. So material that provides a negative carbon footprint. So that's how we as media can contribute to the SDG goals and the industry as well.
Thank you so much for that, Camila. Very insightful, and I believe the sustainable circular self-fulfilling prophecy and narrative that we're speaking about is on the cards. And thanks to agencies like Sativa Media, we're really looking forward to helping build and achieve that together as well. I think sort of the last question for the panel for the day, and I think we have about 5-7 minutes of time, so we can quickly go across the virtual table. First of all, a very big tribute to all of you and hats off to all of you for everything you've achieved. I'm sure the audience is seeing how diverse the spectrum is, whether it's building materials, whether it's sanitary napkins, whether it's cannabis-based medicines for dysmenorrhea, whether it's paper and packaging, whether it's the involvement of media. This is perhaps one of the most diverse panels we've had in the Indian hemp industry so far. And I would put my money on the fact that there must be quite a few aspiring entrepreneurs in the audience today. So perhaps starting with Animesh and then heading over to Abhishek, Haneesh, and then Tarun in that order. If you were to provide one piece of advice to any aspiring entrepreneur who's watching this segment in this panel and are keen on participating and being a part of the Indian hemp industry, what piece of advice would you like to share? So maybe we can start with Animesh and then we can hand over to Abhishek, Haneesh, and then Tarun.
Yeah, thank you, Jahan. Yes, the role of media is so much important, and they are doing a very nice work. Sativa Media hats up, very nice. The people, I think there are two sides of hemp. First, you have to learn about the plant, and then you should learn about the business, like how you can place that plant in the business. So both are a different part, and you have to learn both so that you can find a middle ground to it. So for the plant, I'll say first you have one thing called ResearchGate, right? That's a very good place where you can find all the research papers. Just go and type hemp research papers on ResearchGate, and you'll find plenty of research papers. Go through all those research papers. Everything that you find, be it seeds, stalks, the roots, or about the whole plant. I think that will give you a very good idea on that. And next is, I think, watching videos and blogs, but I think they have still the market is very, a lot of information is not right. So I think you should go through the books, which is very nice. I think you should start with The Emperor Who Wears No Clothes by Jack Herer. I think that is the best book, which will give you a very good insight on hemp plant and how it has evolved till here, based on medicinal part of it and also industrial part of it. So I think that book will give you a very good insight. Second book, on the business point of view with hemp, I would recommend Hemp Bound. Dog Fine is a very nice person, and his writing is also very good. That book will give you a very good insight on the business, how the business was created. Hemp Bound has a lot of people and a lot of interviews of the people who are the pioneers in their field, people from Canada, USA. So I think that book is also of 2013. So it will give you an idea before this 2018, hemp legalization part, which happened in USA. So I think these three, ResearchGate, The Emperor Who Wears No Clothes, and Hemp Bound. You read these three, you will find your ground, and then you can go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Animesh. I'll quickly hand over to Abhishek to get his thoughts and, of course, his piece of advice he'd love to offer aspiring entrepreneurs as well. So over to you, Abhishek.
So, I mean, I honestly can't, I'll speak about the medical cannabis industry where we are part of, right? I mean, if you look at the IT industry in India, for example, it took us 30 years from doing cheap back-end work to building world-class products, right? That was primarily because the local market wasn't that advanced. I would say, the local enterprises weren't consuming the kind of products that were made in Silicon Valley. But in healthcare, that's not an excuse, right? I mean, we are literally ground zero for every health problem. We have a long history with cannabis. My advice would be build for the world, be relentless. It's still wide open. There are only, 4 FDA-approved cannabis-based products in the world. That means the leaders have not yet been minted. So this is the time to build for the world. This is the time when you have a local market and a local need. I would say forget the market, local need. The impact that you can make in terms of innovation with India would definitely be applicable for the rest of the world. So today we are, I would say build for the world, be relentless, solves from 0 to 1, but don't be from 0 to 1. Like, be the best. Be like, there is a chance to lead the world. Do it. And that's all I can say.
Very inspiring. No, thank you so much for that, Abhishek. And I'm sure that's gotten a lot of people fired up, and hopefully a lot of entrepreneurs enter the fray with the great words by you and Animesh and the great guidance you guys have given. I'll quickly hand over to Haneesh and then sort of as a post-set as Tarun to round up our panel discussion as well. So over to you, Haneesh.
Yeah. So I'll again bring it back to the SDGs in a way where, it is a very good way to understand how you want to start with. Like when, for example, we also started with consulting now, because before I personally would have spoken with around 400, 500 people on the call. It was more like my waste of time. So what happened is now, you pay some amount, then only you will be provided with the consulting, for 1 hour of time. So this is how we are also started with this. But in this, most of the people, when they come to us, they tell we want to get into cannabis and hemp. So then, we break it down to them, this is what it is for you, this is what it is for you, this is what it is for you. Now, if it is connected to one of the SDGs, so what can happen is you can work on one of the SDGs and, you can connect it with your vision. Also, you need to know what is your budget. Like if you want to get into medical cannabis, you need to have a budget in your mind. And also when you want to get into textile, then, some other budget. So all of these things should be there. And then you go with the advancement in wherever section you want to go in. And it's better to keep one foot within your whatever is your existing domain, so that you have some competitive edge, and then you go forward in it, so that you sustain more properly. So that's my advice. Thank you.
I think great advice, Haneesh. Honestly, having all of us having watched very closely from inside the ring, as you said, that if I were to put it candidly, the couple of minutes of advice you've given is almost equivalent to any consultant who's coming from a very wide, diverse space and to general as well as, in fact, even more impactful. So I really hope aspiring entrepreneurs are listening to this and understanding about the value of this as well. And for our final panelists, I'd love to get, and thank you so much for that, Haneesh. For our final panelists, would love to get Tarun's thoughts on one piece of advice, being one of the older stalwarts in the industry and working in a very unique space, about some advice he'd love to share with this panel. So over to you, Tarun.
Man, as a scientific author and someone who's doing a PhD, don't consume everything on ResearchGate. Do your research. It's important to also look at the impact of the article and see if it's peer reviewed or not. There are a lot of editorial journals that people publish and then which would actually be pretty misleading. Having said that, ResearchGate is still your best bet in finding good quality articles, but I just have to make this a disclaimer. Man, I just have one piece of advice for everyone who's looking to start something in hemp. Do not give in to the propaganda. Do not give in to the myths. Do not trust everything that you hear. There's a lot of stuff that people hype up about hemp. So it's super important for you to actually bust the myths and at least be open to have the myths busted. And then take a jump in that. I mean, if okay, I'm all dark. but yeah, that's basically my piece of advice.
Thanks for that, Tarun. I think the darkness of your surroundings is amplified by the light of the great work you and Green Jams, and of course the rest of panelists have been doing. And again, thank you so much for offering your time. Each one of you, to Abhishek, to Animesh, to Haneesh, Tarun, and Camila. I believe, unfortunately, we don't have time for questions, but I'm sure any aspiring entrepreneurs and sort of curious onlookers in public will be happy to get in touch with you. All of the founders and entrepreneurs are very accessible on most, if not all, online platforms. So please feel free to get in touch for any queries or doubts, clarifications, support, and guidance, because these are some of the stalwarts, some of the folks who have achieved and sort of moved mountains in their different areas. And of course, tribute to you guys to many more years and decades to come for all of us working together in the hemp industry. And many congratulations to all of you for the pioneering, groundbreaking work you've achieved so far. So thanks so much, everyone, for being a part of this panel discussion. It was a great pleasure to be a moderator and looking forward to keeping in touch with them.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Jahan, for conducting this. Yeah.
Thank you, Jahan, and all the panelists who were here. Like it was so much of Gyan, like on hemp. and like how it connected with sustainability. So like when I started reading about like hemp on sustainability, I couldn't get more info on it. Like, but then like I realized there is a huge connection because SDG is something close to my heart, and I felt hemp is the best way, or hemp industry is the best way to achieve it. Thanks for putting more gas on it.
Evan, I'll tell you a quick story on sustainability. Once a founder of mine and I were traveling in Netherlands on an industrial tour, and we went to the first hemp farmer there in a rural town of 7,000 people, and it started raining. So we had to go for a meeting across town. We saw these beautiful farms. And he said, you know what, I'll drive you guys. There's no Uber, there's no Ola, and all. You can't get access to it. So he pulls out a BMW X5. And we're blown away. There's a farmer in a town of 6,000 people, How is this possible? He drops us off at the meeting. He doesn't say bye. He says, by the way, this car, the fiber and panels are made out of hemp fiber. And the reason is because it's an energy subsidized crop in the European Union. So here's hoping India also has a similar energy efficient, sustainable future driven by hemp and cannabis. And of course, a great tribute again to all the panelists. And thank you so much for having us, Evan and the team.
Thank you. So over to Gautam. We are about to end the month-long celebrations of Startup September.
Thank you, Evan. In fact, thanks to all the panelists for the last 1 hour. Evan was talking about how it was an eye-opener with respect to SDGs, right? It was an eye-opener for me with respect to the hemp industry, right? I was honestly not introduced to so much around the hemp industry. My perspective about the industry has gone up 10x in terms of the opportunities, and honestly, a lot of respect to all of you who are driving this, because I know how difficult it is to create a category or create something in a category that is not yet that popular, right? So really hats off to each one of you for being the change makers that all of us, I don't know if we deserve it, but I think at least it may have a large impact. So just wanted to thank all of you on behalf of Headstart.